Hello and welcome to another episode of A Business Space. Today I'm joined by my new neighbour, which is nice, and co-founder of Scopeout, which is a content marketing agency, Jenny. Jenny, I find it really awkward introducing people and then talking about them, so I'll just let the guest do it.
That's
Do you want to
fine.
give us your elevator pitch on who you are and what Scopeout is?
Yeah, of course. So we are coming up to 3 years old. We are a content marketing agency. We are based in Cheshire and we work with brands to essentially make them the best they can possibly be. We focus on community-driven marketing, so it's all about pulling out those stories and getting their message out there on social media, building their community and creating super fans out of their followers, which ultimately drives sales for their business.
Amazing. And is there a type of business that you focus on? Are you kind of working with particular niches or?
So, yeah, we sort of work with SMEs, but we are covering quite a lot of niches. So we haven't niched down particularly, but we are looking at businesses that have a real story to tell. So for us, we work with a lot of founder businesses, a lot of business owners. So anybody that we feel we can really sort of get on camera. It's all about working with teams within businesses. So essentially anybody that has the potential to be up for getting in front of the screen and really getting involved with the content as well. So we work with a lot of professional services, surprisingly. So getting them on screen, trying to break down that jargon and making their business feel a little bit more approachable, particularly for the Gen Zs and TikTok crowd. We also work with a lot of hospitality, travel tourism, as well as retail and e-com. So pretty much across the board, to be honest.
Perfect. So you said you've been going 3 years. What were you doing before that?
Teaching your child at a baby class,
It's true.
pretty much.
It's very
That's a
true.
true story.
It's very true.
So I worked in corporate law. I got a degree in criminology. I went travelling, fell into travel for a while, then fell into corporate law, training to be a paralegal. Had my two girls and didn't want to work in Manchester every day and felt that the corporate life was just not for me.
Yeah.
Loved elements of it, loved being organised, loved sort of the structure, but just didn't enjoy the opportunity to not really be very creative. And then lockdown happened, homeschooling, had two kids. I'd sort of started doing some baby classes, running baby classes to sort of supplement my income. And that was my I suppose diving into self-employment and sort of freelance life. So I'd gone through all of the rigmaroles of doing that. And then lockdown happened, didn't have a job, wasn't furloughed because I didn't have a business. So I was self-employed and started an Instagram account in April 2020 from my back garden. I still remember it to this day, the moment that I thought, you know what, I'm just going to get on Instagram. And we'd done a lot of traveling with the kids and I wanted to, ironically, talking about travel, which felt like probably the wrong time, but it was a bit of an escape.
Yeah.
And that then turned into talking about walks from the door, places that we could visit within the area that we live and documenting that. And I just really quickly realised that there weren't many people doing what I was doing. I got a lot of feedback from people that needed to know where that walk was, needed to know where that attraction was, or just needed a bit of advice on entertaining the kids through those really difficult days. So we sort of built a real community really, really quickly. And I grew the account to about 10,000 followers in 6 months, which at the time felt massive. And it was probably really easy back in those days when everyone was back on the phones and engagement was really high. And it was just a really fun distraction from a really rubbish situation. And I got approached by Cheshire Life a couple of months after I'd set up the Instagram account to ask if I would contribute to their magazine. So I started writing articles about days out in Cheshire, walks in Cheshire, family activities. As soon as we could start going out again, was interviewing business owners, trying to get people back on the high street, trying to get people to shop local. And as part of that exercise and basically becoming a bit of a journalist, I met a lot of people. I started supporting them with their social channels. I met my now co-founder, Amanda. She was doing very similar at the same time. And I just really quickly realised that I could not only monetize and build a community on my own channels. I could do it for other businesses, and I could do it for businesses at the time that were panicking and that really sort of knew that they had to rely on online. You know, a lot of e-com brands that sort of went from the high street online very, very quickly, and they just didn't know what they were doing. And I sort of learned as I went and felt like I had something to offer. So I started picking up clients. I picked up a really big client very, very quickly, and I couldn't do it on my own. And me and Amanda joined forces within we sort of formed the business in June 2022. And the rest, I think, is probably history from that point on. Yeah.
Great.
Scopeout was born.
Brilliant. So why the marketing side of things? Why is that the thing that you focused on?
I think we really quickly realised that a lot of these businesses had really epic stories, particularly founder businesses and business owners that were still invested in the business on the day-to-day. Even now, we work with businesses that aren't necessarily sort of, they're huge brands, but their team are really interesting and they've got a lot of stories to tell. And I think the rise of employee-generated content and, user-generated content more generally, people have really interesting stories. And I think that sort of journalist in me maybe, or I don't know, that criminology degree, like I'm just really nosy and I want to know everything about everybody. And I think those stories help to define the projection of that business. I think you can really steer them in a direction that they've maybe not thought about. There's so many elements to what we do as business owners that until you start unpicking that, you don't really realise how amazing that business is. It could be the most on paper boring business, but actually they've got some really interesting stories to tell, and that's such a great way now of marketing your business. You know, marketing is changing. It's no longer that really dry strategic approach to how you sell your business. It's so dynamic and it can be really exciting. And I think the rise of TikTok, the rise of like really authentic, genuine content that hits you in the feels and really, emotion sells products and services. It is no longer about what you're offering. It's about who the people are behind the brand, and brand building is so important. It's just more than a business a lot of the time. It is that brand building piece that I absolutely love. And I think that I'm so passionate about pulling those stories out. Every business has a unique story to tell. Like, we're very much about building unforgettable brands. We don't want to just be another content marketing agency. We want to be the business that people come to because we can unpick those stories and we can give them the confidence to tell their own story. We work collaboratively with businesses. We're not in the game of just taking everything over and running with it. It's about having those conversations, having those difficult conversations, sometimes challenging business owners on how they want to market their business and actually pushing back on things that we don't agree with or that we feel that we can, pull those stories out and run with them a lot of the time. So yeah, for us, it's just about bringing marketing into the 21st century, and that the innovative approaches that really now social media is pushing us hard for every single day. You have to work harder than you've ever worked to get your business out there and amplify your voice. It's so difficult to be seen and be heard on social media. So many businesses are there and they should be there, but what's going to make you stand out from that crowd?
I think the rise of personal brand over the last 5 to 10 years has made a massive impact on that, because ultimately it's always been that thing of, I don't want to be the face of my business because what if I'm not there? Doesn't wash anymore.
No.
The fact that really there's so much choice now that stories and the brand story itself and the founder story is actually the thing that separates you, because a lot of the service-based businesses that you're using are very binary. Like if it's an accountant, if it's a solicitor's, they all do a similar job.
Absolutely.
The job is the job. It's very binary. It's ones and zeros. But actually, the story is the thing that will make me want to work with a particular accountant, solicitor, whoever, other than others.
Yeah, and we see that time and time again. I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but people say, I want to work with you.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily care what you do in some respects, but I know you understand my business. I know that you have these ideas and you can drive this business forward. Like you said, there's hundreds of people doing what we're doing. We're not doing anything particularly different on paper,
Sure.
but it's the people behind those businesses, isn't it? And it's the making the decision that you're going to go with one person over another, and it generally comes down to personality and whether you like somebody. That pretty much is the crux of it, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you're that business that's been stuck in, I'm just hiding behind my brand and my logo and this, that, and the other, then you're not memorable enough for them to choose you. You're not telling a story that's engaging enough for someone to care.
And I think that there's that real rise now, particularly sort of TikTok and Instagram, but those video platforms that are forcing, a lot of their team and a lot of their business owners and founders to get on camera. And what that means is that everybody else has to follow. You're going to get left behind in this game if you're not willing to get on camera. And we speak to a lot of businesses that are not willing to get on camera. And while there's things we can do, you're just never going to see the same effect as if you actually just put yourself out there. And I understand it takes time and it takes coaxing and coaching. And, it's not something that you can do overnight. But if you can work with that business over a period of time and build up the confidence to starting with voiceovers, starting with things that feel a little less scary, we know we can get to that point with businesses that they feel confident, that they can get on camera, and it's such a nice feeling when you achieve that, because the results are significantly better. You can instantly see the drive and reach and engagement from their followers because they're just waiting for that. They're waiting to see that content. And as soon as a business owner sees the effect that that piece of content has, they know that it's the right thing. It just takes that convincing sometimes, but the numbers speak for themselves, don't they?
They do. That was going to be one of my next questions, actually, is like, what are some of the advice that you would give someone who is maybe super nervous about getting on camera? So you mentioned things like voiceovers. Talk a little bit about other things that you do that would help someone get on camera if they were shy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's just a case of having a go. I think you can start small. You can start with a day in a life or come with me style reels that have video from your perspective, so you're not on camera but you are taking people along for the journey. It doesn't necessarily need to even be a voiceover. It could have a really nice audio behind it. Maybe doing some stories where you're not actually on camera but you are giving people a feel for your tone of voice. So you could add text to those stories. You could, ask questions, ask engagement style polls and quizzes, because people want to feel that there's a person behind that account. I think there's so many ways now that businesses can hand over their accounts to businesses like ours, perhaps on paper, that you feel that you can look at that account and there doesn't feel like there's anybody within that business actually working on it. So I think just adding in that knowledge and that it's great to get to a point where you can jump on an Instagram live, or you can record a talking story, or you can jump in front of the camera, but that takes time. And I think just building up to that with trying and testing different tactics, like using those stories is, I think, the best way to do it, because they disappear after 24 hours. No one's going to remember that story. I think we're so in our head that people are going to be mulling over what you've said or how you've looked or what how you appear. But you really need to get over that very, very quickly. Otherwise, you're just never going to break through that sort of mindset block of representing your business. And I think as soon as you start getting that positive feedback, it becomes so much easier.
100%. That was going to be my next point, is actually, we're hit with that many different messages each day anyway. No one's going to remember if you stumbled that word.
No one cares. Like that's the crux of it. We're so obsessed with how we appear and how we're so overcritical of ourselves, and we have conversations with business owners all the time about how they're going to look, how they're going to sound. Are they going to sound authoritative enough? Are they going to have the information that they think their followers are going to need? But actually, most of the time, they just want to see you chatting to camera over a bowl of cereal in the morning. Like they literally don't care. They just want to see you and that real, authentic you as well. Show those emotions, show that journey. ask those questions if you don't know the answers to it, because it allows people to know that it's more than just a business. Like, there's heart and emotion, and people care, behind the office buildings and the logos and everything corporate about your business. Perhaps there's just people, and that's all that people want to connect with.
100%. So taking a step into kind of you running your business as opposed to the service you give to clients, like and I get really bored of podcasts when they ask, like, what's your biggest win? And like, talk to us about your biggest success, because everyone's got them and they're all very similar. And I don't think you really learn that much from your wins. So talk to me about kind of, and it doesn't have to be specific, but like one of the big challenges that you faced in business, how you overcame it, and what kind of some of the methods that you dealt with those issues and problems that you've had when running your business for the last 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we probably, in hindsight, grew too quickly, too fast.
Yeah.
I think we took on a couple of amazing clients in the early days that felt like the best thing ever. And we were super busy, and we took in a huge amount of money very, very quickly, and we grew our team really fast. But actually, in hindsight, they were not the clients that ultimately we were ever going to align with long term. They were very focused on product or service without wanting or not feeling like they wanted to tell a brand story. And I think maybe 3 years ago things were a bit different. I think the likes of Amy Smale for Odd Muse, and there's so many founders now that are so integral to their business, particularly like e-com, fashion. It's definitely changed. But I think even a couple of years ago, everyone was hiding behind that sort of corporate world and that wall of sort of process, and things took so long to sign off. Like, we'd create content for a client and it wouldn't go online for 8 weeks by the time that trend had died. And it was never going to hit. And there was so many opinions within that process. I think when you work with really big corporate clients, there's so many levels of democracy that you've got to go through. You've got to get everything signed off by so many people, and actually you just need to be trusted to do your job and actually take those risks. And yes, have an approval process, but not 50 people in that process that all have an opinion that by the time it's gone live, it's not even relevant anymore. So I think now we're much more aligned with working with businesses that perhaps are slightly smaller in scale, but that have the capacity to sign things off quickly, and that can turn a piece of content round and we can get it out within a couple of days, because actually that's what socials need now. It doesn't need a really long approval process. It just needs reactive content that can not necessarily always be jumping on trends, but can see what's going on in the industry and adapt and move as quickly as it can do. So yeah, I think probably something that we've learned, and perhaps a mistake we've made along the way, is chasing after those big corporate clients that pay really, really well, probably take far too long to pay their invoices, but also that just don't sign things off quickly enough. I think that's something that we've realised it will never align with our business in the direction that we're going in.
No. When you look at the clientele that you get the best results for, what are some of like the key characteristics of clients that succeed with you?
Trust in the process, knowing that it's not going to happen overnight. I think organic socials is a long game. You're ultimately not going to see real results for 3 months, and you're probably not going to see the best results for 6 months. Knowing that you need to show up and work with us for a period of time to put that graft in, and some business owners don't want to hear that, and there's some businesses that don't want that, and that's absolutely fine. Organic socials is a really difficult nut to crack, and I think if you're not willing to put that time in and really understand how that ROI is generated for a business through organic socials, I think it's just not for you. Also, businesses that aren't willing to show up on camera, ultimately it's just not going to work. Having said that, we do work with some professional services that I think just take a bit more time. But yeah, I absolutely love like business owners that are still in businesses, that are still very much like interested in what's going on and
Yeah.
could commit to half a day a month where we could really get some great content out of them, because that really is where a lot of the great stories come from.
Yeah.
But if they're not interested, like their team, you know, making that part of their remit, not necessarily creating the content, but being willing to be in content. And personal branding, like you said, is massive now. They've all got LinkedIn channels, they've all got their own social channels, and I think the generation that's coming through now understand the benefits of putting themselves out there on social media. It will benefit them in the long run with their job opportunities and their experience and just their own personal branding as well. We've seen so many businesses that have done it so well and really got their teams involved and that office culture and the EGC, that I think if you're a business that's willing to do that, you're just going to fly. I think it's just such an easy concept now that if you can jump on it, there's so much scope there to run and have huge success.
Brilliant.
On socials.
So when I speak to business owners of all levels of experience, some of the key things, some of the best learnings and stories that come out of them is based on the worst business advice they've ever received as opposed to the best. Like, I had a conversation this morning with someone about business advice and how if you're giving advice to someone, you should be able to tailor it to the individual as opposed to just giving blanket statements, because it's not applicable to everyone, and someone's great advice for you might be terrible advice for me. So thinking about your last 3 years or further back, what's some of the worst business advice that you've taken and how did it impact you and how did you solve it?
Like I said to you before, I think I've blocked a lot of the bad business advice out. We were told not to get an office. So we've done well there because we haven't listened. We were told not to get an office because the game that we're in is completely lends itself to being hybrid and working from home, and that we shouldn't be paying overheads to have a physical office. And I think that's probably the worst advice that anybody's given me, because when you work in a creative industry, working on Zoom is quite possibly the hardest way to work.
It's the biggest killer of creativity going.
And we were so adamant that when we moved into the office that we weren't going to have individual desks, that we were going to have a boardroom table, because our best conversations as a team come from hashing it out and throwing it out there. And we're very much a collective of creatives. Like, we all bring different skills to the table. We've got strategists, we've got social media managers, we've got content creators, we've got account execs that come at it with a completely different angle, and we've got lots of ages as well. So we've got 19-year-olds in the business that are looking at it in a completely different perspective to me at 40. And we need that. Like, I'm welcoming those conversations, and I just think that you're not an island as a business owner. I don't want people to think that I sit in an office on my own and I'm not interested in what anybody's got to say. Being in an office for us is an opportunity to get clients around the table, but most importantly, it's about getting our team around the table and feeling like they can be valuable and that they can offer something that I might not have thought about or somebody else might not have thought about, because social media is ever changing. It requires so many different people's opinions and thoughts, and our favourite thing to do is just to throw everything out and put it all back together again. So I'd definitely say, like, not having an office. I'm going to make this office pay for itself, you know,
100%.
because it has to. I just think it's so important.
In the companies that I'm involved in, the ones that present the biggest challenges are the ones where there's either an absentee owner or one of the co-founders is overseas. And it's just so difficult to kind of, you know, even just like general communication becomes much more difficult.
Moving the dial. I just feel like we've had 3 months where we've not had an office, and I don't feel like we've moved the dial as quickly as we can when we're in an office. I think what we've managed to do in 2 weeks versus the last 3 months is like, it's just massive. And just having those conversations with people and having that ability to sit down and really get things moving is so important. So I
agree. So looking more at the landscape of kind of marketing in general, what's one trend in the industry right now that's super overhyped and that just is not worth its time?
Oh, so super overhyped.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you got me thinking. I'm trying to think. I think personal branding is not overhyped,
No.
but I think that there's a real panic in a lot of business owners to be a personal brand and jump on personal branding. And like you said, it's been there for 5-10 years, but I just think there's so many owners and founders that are coming through that are doing it so well.
Yeah.
I think there's a real panic that everybody has to have a personal brand, and I think there's some truth in that, but I think there's a lot of people that are doing it badly and that are damaging their business and their brand.
I think what I've seen is that personal brand to some people mean copy Stephen Bartlett or copy someone else and do that thing, and that's what a personal brand is, where the key bit is the personal, not the brand.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, if that's not really authentic to you, then that isn't going to work. That is, like you say, it's probably more damaging than
definitely
a win. I talked about this earlier on, but my barber yesterday gave me some really good advice around authenticity. And if you do something that doesn't feel authentic, you feel bad about it. It doesn't sit right with you, like, internally. And I think that's what a lot of people do, is they sit there and go, oh, well, Stephen Bartlett does X, Y, and Z. Or, again, another example, I'm crap at picking examples out, but I'll do it like that person because that's how they do it. And that isn't an authentic version of them, and therefore A, doesn't resonate because there's no real truth to it. So they can't actually create a deeper, meaningful connection with someone because it's not a real thing. And B, probably doesn't sit well with them personally either.
No, and I think we need to remember and be kind to ourselves that the likes of Stephen Bartlett are sat with a team of 50 behind him, and actually a lot of what he's saying is not authentic and genuine, advice coming from his heart and soul. It's a big brand, and I think we just need to be really careful with how we're using our personal brand. And we do a lot of work with businesses that personal brand might not feel comfortable for them. It might be that we build their business brand. You don't need to have a personal brand. It might be that just doesn't feel right for you, or you don't want to overshare elements of your life on your social media accounts. You don't have to use your kids. You don't have to show your house. You don't have to do those things. There's ways that you can still show up authentically as a brand without having to go hard on the personal brand. And I think it's understanding where those lines are and not feeling like you've got to step into that space if you're not comfortable to do so, because you could go the other way and really sort of ruin your brand image. And I think that can just do so much more harm than good a lot of the time. So sticking to your lane sometimes is good.
Yeah. Funny enough, that was my bad bit of a business advice for someone who's like, stay in your lane.
Yeah.
But it was done in a way that different to how you said it. Like, stay in your lane as in don't try other new things.
Yeah.
Don't try. Whereas when you mean it is like, stay in your lane of being your authentic self.
Definitely.
Which I get.
Yeah. And being true to who you are, and don't do things that just don't in your gut don't feel right.
100%. If we looked at your screen time, what is the app? Sorry, what is the app that is like either your guilty pleasure or a business tool that you spend the majority of time on?
Trello.
Really?
I bloody love Trello.
That shows an organisational side of you that
so or
I didn't know.
Asana.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fair.
So
that says so much.
I know. So I am a PA in my former life, and I am the ops director of our business. So whilst I still do a lot of the strategy and the creative elements of our day-to-day running, I'm the organised one. So I love a CRM tool. I love anything like, I've got a really poor working memory, so I can't remember what I've said 2 minutes ago. So for me, writing everything down is so critical to my business, whether that's a thought at 3 a.m. and I write it on my notes, or I plot out my tasks for the day, or we plot all of our client work in Trello so that they can see it, but also that we can work collaboratively. So anything that I can get out of my head and onto a system that I can see it in a really organised way is such a massive tool for me. But anything that keeps me organised.
Wow, very good. So we'll move on to business landscape again. So what's one real big shift that business owners should be like paying attention to? Like, is there a trend or a topic or a a methodology that is underutilized at the minute? It's supposed to be an overhyped, it's underutilized, that you think business owners who are listening to this could potentially take advantage of right now?
Not sleeping on TikTok. I think you might not think it's relevant for your business.
Yep.
We've had so many conversations with lawyers, solicitors, you know, people that feel like that's not where their audience hangs out. And I'm here to tell you that your audience are going to be hanging out on there. Maybe not now, but in 5 years' time, 10 years' time. You know, those kids that are 15 now, in 5 years, might need your services. So TikTok isn't going to go anywhere. And whilst it's so well used by a lot of brands, I think there's so much misconception in the industry that you can't have a TikTok account if you're a certain industry, if you're a professional service, or, you know, it might not feel like a great fit for your business now and the target audience you have now. But they're only going to grow up, and you don't want to still be on Facebook in 10 years' time, and you're just gonna get left behind. So whilst it may not be something that you want to commit a huge amount of time or resource to now, making sure you've got the handles, making sure that you are starting to understand how your industry is performing on there, looking at your benchmarks, your competitors, looking at what people are doing in your space is so important, because I guarantee that there'll be people that are already doing it really, really well. And if you're not prepared to step up and really start building out strategies for TikTok, I think that you're just going to be left behind in the game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's one part of the industry or trend that's definitely you'd bet money on was going to die this year?
I mean, Facebook is still the biggest platform, social media platform, but I think the way that people use it has changed massively. And I think we only really use it now from a community building perspective.
I use it almost exclusively now for groups, and that's it.
Yeah, so I think we offer that, you know, social sharing element of Facebook, but the negativity and in those groups can be tough. But also, I just don't think that Facebook is being used in the same way. I think also another thing that we're really starting to see is that shift from social to search engine. You know, Facebook, not a little bit. I mean, you're searching for your electrician in Warrington or whatever. You're using it in that respect. But Instagram now, you know, as a search tool, and TikTok, you know, people aren't using Google as much. They're jumping on TikTok to find a recipe, or looking for, we work with a lot of sort of travel and tourism brands, you know, looking at how to spend a day somewhere, or what they're going to do for a weekend in Budapest, or, you know, that is how people are researching their life nowadays. So making sure that your content is SEO optimized, that it's got all those keywords in there, that you're using your hashtags in the right way, that if people are searching for content, that your content is going to show up in the right fields, making sure your account's optimized and that it's performing, because our Instagram account performs from a search perspective even more successfully than our website. Like, we appear on the top page on Google for, you know, our industry in this location, but that's better than our website at the moment. So using it in the right way. And
what's super funny is your account shows up when I search for my business.
Oh, that's
because
annoying
you've tagged
for you, isn't
because
it?
you've tagged us in it. Your account on Instagram shows up. It's not annoying.
Is that why you're not following us?
I am.
Yeah, I don't think you are.
I might follow you. Who knows? But
but it's super powerful.
But it is, 100%.
And
it's really
people forget that, you know. People just think that it's a completely separate tool, and actually it's so integrated into search engines now that you have the ability to perform better as a social channel than you do. You don't even need a website a lot of the time now. Like, you 100%. Can really rely on your social channels if they're done in the right way. So, and the cost, it still remains the best free marketing tool, organic socials, for your business. And you don't need to be spending a fortune if you don't want to.
Yeah, it's just time.
It is. Yeah. It's time. And I think that's where there's that switch, isn't there, between, you know, how you use those platforms and what your priorities are. But if you have got the time, it's the best thing in the world if you can commit to it.
100%. So before we wrap up, a bit of quick fire questions. So one book or resource that actually changed the way you do business?
Change the way I do business. I don't read.
Or just helped you? Doesn't have to
I
change
don't
it.
have time to
Maybe it's a
read.
bit too much of a hyperbole, change the way you do business, but like,
You know
stuff that helps
what?
you.
I think I'm going to spin that question a little bit. Having a business partner for me has been
Yeah, fair.
massive. I actually don't think I'd have got to this point without a business partner. I wouldn't have had the confidence to set up a business. I wouldn't have pushed myself as hard as I've pushed myself, and having that sounding board is huge as a business owner. I think
Yeah.
it can be a really lonely place.
100%.
So I've actually not felt the need to consult anything else because I've had somebody else that offers something completely different to me,
Yeah.
coming at it from very different angles, and that has allowed us to, I suppose, have that quite well-rounded approach to business. That she's very business savvy and business minded. I've never run a business before, so I sort of come with the practical side of things, but without the I just don't think I'm a risk taker. I'm just not a risk taker in life. So I think she comes with that sort of being able to push to take risks, and I come with that practical, and I think somewhere in the middle we've created a business.
Great. Yeah, I think business partners are super important if you both align on goals and you do have complementary skills, not necessarily the same skills, but complementary ones. I think that they're really important. What's one system or tool you swear by?
Oh, I've got a lot. Asana.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Asana just because I absolutely love it. I probably am not using it well enough, but it has the capabilities to be the most amazing tool for your business if you've done it in the right way. And I think, again, going back to sort of maybe starting this business 3 years ago, I didn't have those systems in place back then. It's taken me, I've had to learn everything, and I've almost had to find things that solve issues. Whereas I think if I'd have had a knowledge of business tools at the beginning, I'd have saved myself so much time and stress. I think I've found things as I've needed them, whereas I wish I could just tell my three-year past self to get myself set up on all these tools right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely.
What's one that you think is absolutely rubbish and you'd never use again?
Oh God, what have I used that I've not used anymore? I mean, Meta drives me bloody...
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? I've used a lot of scheduling tools, actually, and that's probably not fair because actually we do now schedule on Meta Business Suite because I feel like it's still the most reliable platform.
Yeah, 100%.
But we've tried so many scheduling platforms and they've all been just really not integrated or faffy or overcomplicated. Actually, stripping it back to the basics and scheduling things through Meta is... probably we've used loads. We've used Dash Hudson, which costs an absolute small fortune, and I don't find it any better than a free tool. So sometimes it's not all about spending loads of money.
100%. If you had to start this business all over again, with all the things you know now, what would be the first thing you did?
I thought you were going to say, what would you say? I'd say don't know. Probably, having some more business knowledge. Like, I just don't think, and maybe that served me well, I just did not know what to expect. I literally was an accidental influencer. I somehow managed to monetize my Instagram account. I somehow managed to grow a community. I did all these things that I didn't really think about at the time. And looking back now, I don't really know how I did it, in all honesty. I think I probably was just authentic and did all the things that I now practice preach to business owners every single day. Like, I showed up daily, I was authentic, I spoke my truth, I showed people the really gritty, harsh realities of what I was doing. I made mistakes along the way, and I just brought people along for the ride, and I think that's probably served me well, really. I think
a lot of the times as well, one of my clients and friends, Mike, is a really good example of this. Is until recently, and he said in his own mind he probably needed to do it more, is bringing people along for that journey and telling that story, and then just not like constantly battering them to sell something. I think is huge. Like, Mike makes more offers now than he ever did, but he makes it in a way that still feels really authentic. And he was on a podcast that I filmed for him a few months back, and a chap came in, he was like a sales coach and runs a sales business. And he's like, your method of selling, he was talking to Mike, and Mike was like, I didn't really realise that I had a method of selling. He's like, you do. And it's the not battering people down and not cramming offers down people's throat, just picking really good opportunities to sell based on a natural process. And I think that's where sometimes especially organic social media, people get that really wrong. It's like everything needs a CTA, everything needs to be driving towards. It's like, no, there's a process and there's a time and a place for it. And understanding that, I think, is really key. And that, like you said right at the top of this chat, it's a longer process. It might take 3 to 6 months for it to start to bear fruit, but you build up that much goodwill and you build up that much genuine interest, and people also rooting for the business. I've not tried to sell anything through the studio yet on social media. I've run ads and I've done networking and all that type of stuff. But so many people are like, it looks great. I'm super happy for you. I've passed it on to someone else because I've just built up goodwill over the 6 weeks we've been open. I think that's a really key point.
I know, and I think that we practice what we preach. I think you've really got to, like you are doing this and showing people what you can do. We have our own personal brands. We all feed into the business account. Our business account is active. It's doing what it needs to do. We're doing everything that if we were to say to a business owner, this is what you need to grow your business on organic socials, we're doing that. We've grown our own channels. We've built our community. We've done everything that... It's that social proof, isn't it? We're not trying to flog you something that we've not done 100 times before, and we're not doing for ourselves every single day.
It used to really piss me off when I worked in more traditional web design agencies, and they'd always be trying to sell search engine optimization, paid marketing. They'd all try and sell web design services, and their website would be shit. They'd have no content or no marketing of their own. They wouldn't be running any paid. They wouldn't show up in search. I'm like, you're not drinking your own Kool-Aid, so how can you even imagine someone would pick up the phone and say, I'll give you 10 grand for that site or whatever?
I know.
Yeah, I think it's really important.
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding, isn't it? And I think, we've gone up against much bigger firms than us, much bigger agencies, 360 agencies that are offering all singing, all dancing, marketing offerings and services. But actually, when you do that, I think you're diluting what you can offer and your services that you can offer. Going back to staying in your own lane, we stay in our own lane, organic socials is where we are comfortable and where we get results for clients. We're not trying to be everything. I'm happy to collaborate and refer and, all of these things, so that we know that every client that we work with, they're getting the best out of us. They're getting the most they can possibly get out of us. We leave nothing on the table, but we're not trying to be somebody that can do absolutely everything, because I just don't think that you can get the results in that. I just don't think you do. I think you've just got to really hone in on what you're good at, and
I think
do it over and over.
Especially as an owner-managed, owner-operated business, having some level of specialism and being known for something is really important. I think being too much of a generalist actually dilutes your message, dilutes your marketing, dilutes the way that people buy from you, because they're confused as well.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
I think it's a really good point. Okay, we'll wrap up. Jenny, where can people find out more about you and Scopeout?
So we're on Instagram at Scopeout Agency. You can follow my personal brand at Jenny Scopeout. We've got our website, scopeout.co.uk. And we're in Cheshire and we're out and about. So you might see a bit more of us.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for joining me, Jenny. Thanks everyone for watching this episode of, I forgot the name of the podcast last time and I've done it again now. Business Space. Thanks for watching this episode of Business Space. If you've got any questions for Jenny, ask them in the comments. I'll tag all of the things that Jenny said here in the comments as well. And I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye. Thanks so much for watching this episode of a Business Space podcast. I appreciate you spending the last half an hour or so with me and my guest. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like it, subscribe and share it with a friend. Hit the little notification bell so that you get notified next time I put up a new episode. And let me know in the comments, what was your favourite bit? What was the part that resonated with you the most? And if you've got a business or an audience where you think a podcast might work for you and help you develop deeper or more meaningful relationships with your audience and sell more stuff at a higher price, drop me an email. You can get me at stephen@contentspace.com. Look forward to chatting with you soon and stay tuned for the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.